Hi, Steve here, the Laughing Stoic. Welcome back to the channel. If you've been following these videos as I've been releasing them, my apologies. There's been some intercurrent events, which means this video has been delayed by a week or so. If you haven't been following the channel, just surfed back here after some period of time, well, no apology is required. Anyway, it's good to see you, and today will be a slightly shorter video, but talking about the observing self. This flows from ancient Greece, really, where over the lintel of the Delphic Oracle, where people used to go and hear cryptic but wise words, there was carved, know thyself. And there's been some debate about exactly what that means, but in some ways I think it is referring to this faculty, the faculty of being able to look at yourself somewhat independently. So exactly what does that constitute? And how do you develop one? Well, for a start, you probably can't develop a proper observing self until you're into adult life, because it's an executive brain function, and those bits of the brains that do executive function particularly well are not developed until in your 20s, really, starting in your late teens perhaps. So it is a little bit of a skill. So the observing self is where you step outside of your immediate situation and demands and take a quick look at what's going on. So if you're in a situation and quite a lot's happening and you've got things to do and it might be stressful, you might have some emotional demands, you might be a bit scared about what's happening, as long as you've got enough resource to just keep ploughing away at the tasks you have immediately in front of you, you may have enough mental facility left to reflect on the nature of the situation, to see if it broadly resembles the situation you thought you were in, on the nature of your level of capacity and stress and your actions, and whether those actions seem to be having the effects that you anticipated in that situation. And lastly, perhaps one or two instructions that might suggest how the situation might be improved from the point of view of your actions. Now, I'm understanding that a lot of time people aren't able to do this while they're in difficult situations. And often the best time to develop this skill is in retrospect, to look back on a situation that you've encountered where things have been very difficult and you've had to act perhaps in a demanding and rapid way, and things may or may not have worked to varying degrees in that situation, yet you've come through the other side and you do have an opportunity to reflect on what exactly was going on and how you functioned and whether you've got anything to learn from that. So that's another great Stoic virtue, wisdom, and wisdom comes from learning from your mistakes. This facility does have other representations and is slightly different in different situations. One that I would recommend is the concept in the airplane cockpit, and we've talked about airplanes being a bit of a metaphor for your mind and your life, where these days with two pilots, they allocate the tasks to what's titled pilot flying and pilot monitoring. And the pilot monitoring function essentially contains, if these two people were one, an observing self. The pilot monitoring is seeing if the situation kind of resembles the situation they thought they were in, looking at the controls, looking at what's going on outside, see how they're doing in terms of what they plan to do, or what the pilot appears to be doing, and whether that's working, and ask the question of whether they need to intervene in some sort of way to redirect or assist, or just provide encouragement and support. So that I've referenced in a video down below, one of a guy called Mentor Pilots videos, and most of his videos, when he's talking about cockpit workplace management, or resource management as he calls it, refer to these two roles, and I think it's worth reflecting on that role of pilot monitoring. In psychology and psychiatry, there have been kind of some more historic twists to this, and the one that comes up most is the idea of the superego. Now, I don't want to get all technical, but Freud, the great psychiatrist, Viennese psychiatrist, promulgated a theory of mind which had sort of three layers to it. The sort of id, which was the sort of primal functioning, the ego, which was your kind of sense of yourself functioning and how you saw yourself in the world, kind of the pilot, and then the superego, which monitored the the ego and its activities. But in his view, the superego was populated by the ghosts of your parents and significant elder influences on your life. And the superego was a moral view of yourself which was often critical as a problem, and was certainly not just a reflection of your own explicit desires to observe and manage yourself, but it was a bit of a curse, I would think, for most people. So the superego may have well reflected Viennese society and culture, and how children were brought up and instructed and disciplined perhaps, and they may well have acquired some critical internal views from their parents, which they saw as pretty much carved in stone and not open to question. But the concept of the observing self is different from that. So the observing self is kind of objective. You're trying to ascertain the facts. What is the situation? Do the facts of the situation resemble our assessment of the situation? What are we doing? Is what we're doing working? Can we just leave it alone and carry on? Or do we need to think a little bit more and maybe take some steps to change things? Is it obvious what we need to do? Do we need to take time out, and if that's possible, and reassess the situation and our responses and try again? So all these things are possible if you have an objective frame. You don't want to spend your time going around criticising yourself about everything you have or haven't done. That is not the purpose of the observing self, or as I would encourage you to look at pilot monitoring in mentor videos. So that's really it for today. I will be producing videos in a much more sort of diverse pattern now. This completes the series of sort of core explanatory videos around the Stoic model of the mind and how to operate, and hopefully now I can sort of branch out and pick up interesting individual topics and see how to approach them from a Stoic point of view, and perhaps make them a little less turgid. So all the best. Hopefully I'll be back in a week with another video. Until then, like and subscribe, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you very much.